where do you see the direction of the opportunity to work in tech, I guess, in the next year or two? Because obviously it's been, a lot of talk with layoffs and a lot of happenings with layoffs. You've experienced layoff, which is profound. And now you're back in tech, you're in a manager position. Talks of recession, not a recession. In terms of someone who, and it's a lot of talk around tech sales, right? It's a lot of boot camps out there. Hey, get in tech. This is where the money at. Get in tech sales. What would you say, just advice to someone who sees the promotions, they see the talk about tech sales, but then they also see layoffs, recession? What would you say to someone? Is there opportunity right now entering into the space?
There's 1,000% opportunity, 1,000%. So we always tend to magnify the negative side of the news, right? Oh, there's layoffs. Amazon laid off X amount. This person laid off X amount. We also added 500,000 jobs in just January. But do we hear that? Do we hear that narrative?
Never heard. Right? Tech family, what's up? It is Justin here. So we have another dynamic person who is a part of the show today. We have Eric Selenus, family man, married with children, started off as an SDR, worked this way up, enterprise level, team lead SDR, all the way to SDR manager. So we are obviously delighted, honored to have him a part of this conversation today. I hope that the dialogue will be quite inspiring and provide applicable measures for you. And one thing that we're really going to look to dig into at some point throughout the interview is really, what does it take for someone who's entering into tech sales to crush it, do well, and really succeed? We have a manager on the program, so we can just ask the manager, what is it that he sees in terms of the characteristics and the qualities and all of that. But right now, let's just dive into this conversation. So Eric, what's up, man? So glad to have you. Obviously, we've already met. I want you to just start off, Eric, man. Just tell us, what is your driving motivation for obviously being able to perform? So you're doing well in your career. You and I both know that career is connected and correlates with family life. That correlates with just how we approach those things in general, and what that provides for us. So just tell us about yourself and tell us what is behind this driving force to be able to produce real results.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, I appreciate you having me on. I think, the first thing that you kind of touched on is how family life obviously has a correlation, right, to work. And I think that the very first thing is trying to establish, like, what is your why, right? Like, why are you an SDR? Why are you in sales? And so for me, again, family man, it's really, trying to make sure that I'm setting my family up for success. And obviously with that, there's a financial burden or a financial objective that comes along with that. And, the great thing about sales is, hey, you can really make as much money as you want to make. So that's really what led me down the tech sales, the SDR path. Okay. I think my background is actually quite interesting, right? So prior to the pandemic, I was in hospitality. So always been a people person, and I was in the restaurants, worked my way up again from a server, front of the house manager, where I ended as an events sales manager. Okay. So that's where I really got a good glimpse of commission and kind of maximizing your income. Okay. And pandemic came in, really just destroyed that industry. And so while I was pretty much placed on furlough, I was kind of thinking, what industry can I go into that has a little more security? And it's kind of funny. It sounds really ironic right now, just based off all the layoffs that are going on in tech, where I'm just like, man. But that actually led me to an SDR bootcamp. Okay. So I took a sales development bootcamp called FlockJ. So okay. It was a 3-month bootcamp, and it was pretty intensive. It's pretty similar to SV Academy and I'm pretty sure you went to your own type of course
Yeah.
careers. Yeah. And fun fact, my cousin actually did that course, and he got an SDR job, I want to say a month or two coming out of that.
Nice. Nice. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you just got into tech when the pandemic hit.
Exactly. So it was I actually had a good friend who pretty much had the same trajectory as me, left hospitality, found a boot camp, had a lot of success, and it just felt like a natural transition.
Eric, so now I'm just curious. All right, so I know you were in hospitality. Like, how long were you in hospitality?
10 plus years.
Okay, got it. Nice. No, that's really cool. My background, I guess you could say, is hospitality. I was a professional chauffeur, so that was like my world. It's just black suit, black car service. That's day and night, man. That's what I did. And same, the pandemic just kind of shut that down temporarily.
Hey, that's awesome. My dad was actually he was a chauffeur.
Okay.
He used to drive for a company called, I think it was LeGrand Affairs.
Okay.
I might be butchering that, but hospitality, what I've been noticing is some of the folks that come from a hospitality background, they have a real smooth transition, right? Specifically bartenders and servers. So it was funny because what I noticed was there's a big thing being an SDR and having cold calling anxiety. But when you're a server or you're a bartender, in theory, every cold call, every new person who walks up to your bar, every new table, every new person who walks to your bar is essentially a cold call, but in real life. So when it comes to having a conversation with people you don't know over the phone and you can't see them, what is there to be nervous about? I'm more nervous about mom's food coming out late and being yelled at by dad, let alone somebody hanging up on me.
Yeah. Nah, that's cool. And that does make sense. And I really sucked in the restaurant industry. I worked for a restaurant for 2.5 months as a busboy, and I quit. So, I don't know.
I hear you.
I don't know how that carries over, but yeah, I come from car sales in my most recent job, and definitely appreciate the tech space, working from home, providing a business to business service as opposed to the business to consumer situation that I was in. So definitely appreciate that. Yeah. No, that's cool. So in terms of like, now I'm just going to kind of just throw this question out there for the viewers. If anybody else is wondering, like I am, I don't like, I get it, but I don't fully get it, even though I'm working in the industry now as of January 9th, 2023 in tech. In terms of your SDR manager, now, is that a different, does the vertical kind of change moving from SDR to account executive or SDR manager? Is that the same vertical? Meaning, like, can you go from SDR to SDR manager or SDR to like account executive? Is that like two different directions? Like,
correct. Absolutely. It's not polar opposite directions, but right, you can go there's multiple different ways that you can kind of segue, right? And I think that's also really important, is having defined career paths built out at your work. So the typical trajectory, right, is the sales path, account executive. And then you also have, the leadership route. Now, when it comes to leadership, I would say A, there's just obviously less manager roles. B, it's a specific type of personality. What I've noticed is the people that have that hunter mentality and are really just focused on just money in general tend to obviously go down the natural path. And then the people that are really kind of collaborative, just always stepping up to coaching peers and just love developing people, obviously go down the manager route. But yes, it is two different, career paths. And it was really interesting because I was like, 100%, I'm going to be an AE. And this is my internal dialogue. I'm like, Wolf of Wall Street. I'm going to make millions of dollars. Like that. That's how I'm like. That was my mentality, right? And then the opportunistic side of me kind of took over when I saw. I was like, hey, there's going to be an opening for an SDR manager route before an AE route. Like, what do I think about that? And coming from my hospitality life, I managed a pretty substantial team. And I know that if you ask me what were some of the biggest highlights of my career in the hospitality industry, it was definitely developing people and seeing people move on from when they started with me and seeing them have success in their next role. And I decided to go down that path. But to answer your question, yes, 2 different separate paths.
Okay. Yeah, that does make more sense. And I was even thinking about how you said you went to like the event manager, like in your last role. And your personality seems you're just from like my brief time meeting you, you're like very attentive to like detail, even like in the person that you're dealing with. But you're calm, you're calculated, and you're extremely personable at the same time. So I can definitely see how your influence in a person's life can bring direction, right? I can see that because it's the strategy, but then it's also being personable. So no, that definitely that makes sense. That makes sense. Just from you meeting me, Eric, I'm curious. And I know you don't, obviously we don't really know each other, but just from you meeting me, I'm an SDR right now with Intuit, as we know. From you being a manager in this space, do you see my personality fitting more in going in like an AE direction or like a manager direction?
That's a great question.
I thought that's a curve question.
No, yeah. No. It's a great question, right? I mean, based off of the limited time that we've had together, I would say, and sounds like a cop-out answer, right? But I can see you going both ways because I think that you have a strong defined why, being a family man, owning your own development with course careers, with, having your podcast and kind of just essentially taking your development by the horns, which is a really strong characteristic for SDRs and just AEs, any salespeople in general. But then you also have the personality I could see you have the personality to kind of, to lead a team, somebody who, can empathize with others, as well as just, you feel like I feel like I've known you, but we've literally just met, 15 minutes ago, right? But that's an important trait. Right? Because you have managers that they say whatever they need to say, for example, during a one-on-one, but the conversation is dry. As soon as you hop on the call, you're just business, right? Where you have maybe manager B, where you hop on a one-on-one first. Hey, Justin, how's it going? How was the weekend? Take the dog to the park. Like, we're building that dialogue. But when you have that, the person you're coaching just tends to be more receptive because they just feel like they actually just care about you as a person, opposed to just, hey, business. I don't really care what's going on. So I feel like having that trait is really important. And I think you have that. So to answer your question,
take that.
You go on both routes.
Eric, I'm like, look, I have an SDR manager like right in front of me right now. Like, why not just ask? I appreciate that. I really do. So what, at any point, Eric, because obviously I'm going to like keep asking questions just to keep directing the conversation. But at any point, literally, I mean this, you can like jump in, completely change directions, ask whatever you want to ask. Like, it's all good.
For sure.
Question that I have next is, what direction do you see yourself going in next? Do you see yourself just staying in the leadership vein on the sales side of tech? What does that look like for you, the future?
Yeah, this is such a great question. I literally have this question. I ask myself this question literally every single day.
Wow.
Because I still have that little Wolf of Wall Street person in the back of my head who's like, Eric, double back, go get that money. Right? Literally, that's the conversation I have, right? I'm in California. I am in one of the most expensive cities in the US. And I know that my bank account could be more fulfilled if I go left. But here comes the cliche, but will I be fulfilled as a person if I know that kind of my true calling is to coach people and to kind of lead? So it's a constant tug of war that I deal with, right? And it was funny. So I actually got laid off in tech. Surprise, surprise, right?
Wow.
So laid off in hospitality, laid off in tech, and this was a couple months ago.
Wow. Okay.
And where my old company had layoffs. By the way, shout out to Prince, shout out to Danny, where I met them. But I almost made a pivot then. where I was like, okay, maybe should I try this AE path? And then sure enough, I just kind of the coaching side of me won out and was just like, you're not done here. We got more work to do. So I guess for the foreseeable future, I'll definitely stay in leadership. I also want to become a second line leader and really learn how to manage managers and kind of seeing what that looks like. But I'm still definitely honing on my craft as a frontline manager, and it's something that I really enjoy. So I'll probably stay put for the time being.
No, that's good, Eric. And of course, Tech Family, obviously LinkedIn description. I mean, the LinkedIn for Eric will be in the description for you to be able to connect with him. So, all right. So I have this thing, Eric, like with what you're saying and it's resonating a lot because starting this brand that my wife and I started, Tech Journey, when we decided to go into tech, it's this, I don't know if I should call it a balance, but the idea of my passion to help people versus my strategy to profit, right? So there's a passion there that I have that I really do want to help people navigate the process in the tech, make things easier, create a community where they can come in, be trained, be developed, become better as people, and then make a better living for their family. Then it's also that strategy side there to where obviously I want to make money, but then on top of that, time is limited anyway, right? So it's like I can only do so much in like a 24-hour period. And money in a sense, or income in a sense, charging, it brings that ability to direct my attention. So like I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, and I have so this trainer, he was like a father figure and a mentor to me coming up. I used to work for him and he got me ready for collegiate football, a North Korean, a guy named Bum Jin Lee. He owns literally one of the best gyms, West Bank Athletic Club in Louisiana. And he used to say this thing when I was younger, and he would say, you can make money doing whatever you're doing as long as you're the best at it. And that always like stuck out to me. I'm like, dang, that's true. Like, even if I'm good at killing cockroaches, like if I'm the best cockroach killer, like I can start, an extermination business and still like be a CEO of a company killing cockroaches. But that always stuck out to me. So no, I appreciate you sharing that. That's good. I dig it.
Yeah, no, it's a simple but profound kind of thing to say, right? Because there's so much truth in that, right? Because it's, I feel like I almost kind of had that mentality as a server where it's really interesting, right? I was serving tables making more money than people that had bachelors starting off for probably quite some time, right? Like right. I was in the restaurant business, serving tables, clearing a good 75. And I was working 28 hours a week, right? And so I don't know, a little bit of a tangent, but I mean, it's one of those things that it's really, really true. And it's kind of crazy. And that's why a lot of people have a hard time getting out of that lifestyle of serving and bartending, because you can make crazy money. You don't work a lot, right? It's just when you switch over to, oh, wow, now I have a family. Oh, damn, I got to work weekends. Hey, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? Me? I'm in the restaurant working at 12. And then you're like, okay, what's it worth? But yeah, I think that's I think that's a great kind of phrase to always keep tight to you.
No, that's good. So, all right. So I'm gonna start digging into this answer. As a manager of
Yeah.
sales development representatives,
Mm-hmm.
what does it take for an SDR to thrive? I mean, because obviously we know that's entry level tech sales, but when an
Mm-hmm.
SDR comes in on your team, and what is it about the one that gets the promotion, that remains in the company, that you can just kind of find as a central theme that separates their performance?
Yeah. Really, really good question. And one thing before I answer that is that I kind of just want to put out there for the audience, right? Is everybody talks about SDRs as kind of an entry level position, right? And it is an entry level, but I just want everyone to understand that it is one of the most important roles in the business.
Wow.
And if your company doesn't have pipeline top of funnel, your company doesn't have anything. The SDRs are really the pulse of the business. So if you pull the rug out from underneath the company and there's not SDRs, there's not you, salespeople are not closing things, people do not have jobs, and the board is not happy. And one thing to always remember is people who put up their money, the expectation is always to get their money back tenfold. So again, just the role is really, really important.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, right? It's just because it's such an underappreciated, undervalued role, and it's tough sledding. It's
Yeah.
not an easy job. But
Yeah.
back to the original question, right? It's kind of like, what are some of, I guess, what are some of the traits that I'm noticing that all top reps have in common, right? I think the first one that comes to mind is probably curiosity. Curiosity is definitely an interesting one, right? So it's the reps that are curious. I'm starting to see that those are the ones that are really creative, right? So those are the ones that are really good with outreach and can kind of be that orange triangle amongst a bunch of circles, right? Or squares, and really stand out. And that curiosity can take shape in so many ways. Like I said, the outreach. B, how can I improve process? Like, I know what I'm doing, it's not efficient. Prospecting, account research, etc. And that curiosity is just always in their head, always burning, right? But because of that, they are always looking to improve or find a more efficient way. And it's just a trait that I would say 99% of top performers have is curiosity.
No, that's good. I can definitely see that. That's something that I have personally grown to appreciate. I didn't define it as curiosity, but that's it. That's definitely it. Now that you say that, I've grown to appreciate critically thinking and allowing myself to be creative and innovative, which is something that I believe that I overlooked in the past. It's the appreciation of critically thinking through a situation and then figuring out a solution. Like, and just really at the end of the day, not taking my ignorance as it's okay. It's like if I don't know it, I need to figure out how to know it, learn it. If I'm having trouble learning, then go watch a video and study how to learn and then take what I learned from there and then go learn what I'm trying to learn. Like I've grown in appreciation of that in this season around the same time that my wife and I decided to enter into the tech space. And I can just see how it just bleeds over into the other areas of our life, right? Just in terms of our financial affairs, running a business, just knowing the next decision that we're going to make for our family. I've grown to appreciate that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing that you said that really hit home to me, which I guess I can segue into my next trait or next thing that I really notice is if you don't know how to find the answer, what do? You go and find it, right? And so I think that The SDRs that own their own development, oh, it is night and day, their performance to the rest of the team, right? And so some people have this mentality of like, oh, well, if my company doesn't enable me, they don't give me my resources and I fail, it's not on me, it's on the company. No, no, no. That's not how sales works. But you'll be surprised. A lot of SDRs, they have that mentality. But the SDRs that go out and they own their development, meaning they're joining communities, right? Like when I first started, I was the first SDR at a 35-person startup. And my first day on the job, my quote unquote manager, it's like, what does an SDR do again? Can you tell me that? And I'm like, okay. I was like, well, that's interesting. And I'm like, what's your background? He's like, I kind of close business and telecom and this and that. And I'm like, oh, and I'm like, okay, like we do this. Like, I don't even see what's the correlation there, but okay, cool. First thing I did, right, was I joined SDR Nation. I knew I had no resources, no playbook, no nothing. And so then it was, if I fail, it's Eric's fault. And I really took my professional and just personal development in general very, very serious. And so I started joining communities like SDR Nation. I was on every webinar. I was the most active person in that Slack channel because I knew I needed to find answers and I didn't know what I didn't know. So please own your own development. It's paramount.
Wow. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Please drop a comment and let us know what you think about that. So curiosity, owning your own development. That's like being an entrepreneur, right, Eric? I mean, that's like.
It literally is. Like how I phrase it when I'm talking to my reps is like, what's going on with your business? Right? There's multiple different ways to get to quota. And so, yeah, it is really being an entrepreneur. I don't care how you hit your quota. Just hit it. I'm obviously here to help you, guide you, set parameters, but this is your business. It is 100% your business. And I think by giving the SDRs that, it also gives them a sense of like, you know what? I am really important to the direction of the company and the success of it. And so 100% it's like being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. So I am gonna begin to wind up the conversation. So just have in mind, Eric, if there's anything that you just want to ask me or just put out there to the audience, you can just kind of have that in your mind. I just want to ask you this, and then we'll get to any closing things that we have. And it's only if you feel comfortable asking, like, where do you see the direction of the opportunity to work in tech, I guess, in the next year or two? Because obviously it's been, a lot of talk with layoffs and a lot of happenings with layoffs. You've experienced layoff, which is profound. And now you're back in tech, you're in a manager position. Talks of recession, not a recession. In terms of someone who, and it's a lot of talk around tech sales, right? It's a lot of boot camps out there. Hey, get in tech. This is where the money at. Get in tech sales. What would you say, just advice, to someone who sees the promotions, they see the talk about tech sales, but then they also see layoffs, recession? What would you say to someone? Is there opportunity right now entering into the space?
There's 1,000% opportunity, 1,000%. So we always tend to magnify the negative side of the news, right? Oh, there's layoffs. Amazon laid off X amount. This person laid off X amount. We also added 500,000 jobs in just January. But do we hear that? Do we hear that narrative?
Never heard.
Right. So make sure you're doing your due diligence when, if you're on the cusp of making a specific decision, like an important decision around maybe transitioning into being an SDR, I would 100% do it. There is 1,000%. There is opportunity. However, the competition is fierce. It's tough for every role right now. And so, again, those boot camps is probably one of the top things that I look for when I hire, because it shows that, okay, this person is taking it serious, right? Wow. And I know that from a managerial perspective, the ramp time in theory is going to be quicker with this gentleman or this gal because they already know what an SDR is, opposed to somebody fresh out of college where they're like, yeah, I got my friend's in it and he makes 100K. It's like, okay, cool. But like, do you know what a sales engagement platform is? Right. Wow. So yes, I would 100% encourage people to be an SDR right now. And
wow.
Yeah. It's kind of like my general thought on that. Yeah.
No, that's good. If you got anything else on your mind, because I realize you said that's one thing that you look for when you're hiring is if someone took it upon themselves, went through some type of development course. Is it anything else that you look for? Like now I'm just asking just for some little token to throw out there when you're
and one other quick anecdote is all my top performers on my old team and my new team, what's the common denominator? What do you think?
All of your top performers on your old team, is it something that you've said already in the interview?
I've touched on. I didn't necessarily say, and I'll go ahead and I'll answer it. But they all took SDR boot camps.
Oh,
just
really?
Saying.
I would not have thought that. Wow.
Exactly. So one thing that I have in my hiring matrix is let's look for that. Let's look for that, right? Because it really does make you stand out. It does. Now, it's not necessarily always going to get you a job, but it's a great common denominator. And again, I've seen it time in and time out. So,
Eric, that is so valuable. And I guess I know it, but I don't know it, right? I just got hired. So, but hearing from your perspective now, it's like, oh, okay, it is worth it. It's like, okay, that makes sense.
I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for that boot camp. I can 1000% say, let alone the network you build there.
Yeah,
it is big. It's kind of like people say, right? When you get an MBA, the most important thing you get from getting an MBA is really the network that you build.
Yeah.
Like not to hate on anybody that has an MBA by any means. Go get your education, but for like a typical sales route, do you need it? I would debate it. But again, the community is huge. And on paper, you're good to go.
Thank you. Okay. That's good. I like that. Eric, anything you
yeah, I guess one last question. This is a random question. This is just a curiosity thing, right? So obviously Intuit, big company. Are you guys currently leveraging like ChatGPT in terms of account research, prospecting, anything like that as a whole? I'd be curious to see what y'all are doing, because I know startups we're getting scrappy because we have to.
Wow. Well, I'll say this. From what I know, my level, no. If it's happening, I have no idea. I found out about ChatGPT.
TP.
Yep. Okay, I found out about that actually about a week ago through just scrolling on YouTube. Like I actually didn't even really know about it. And since then, now I'm like intrigued and just curious about it. But so to answer your question, no. But my role, and maybe this will bring a little more view into it. So the people who I call from a dialer. Okay. So I literally, I'll book anywhere from 7 to 13 appointments for the AEs a day. I might go through 150 to 200 dials because the machine is just dialing out for me. And these are people who are already, maybe they're in one of our programs. And then, we're just basically identifying if we can just help them optimize in a different way, obviously through a different plan. Now, where they actually generate, how they generate those leads, whoever generates that. Now, I don't know that process or if it's through any type of like AI intelligence. But benefits to us. No.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's also tomatoes to oranges, right? In terms of Intuit and where I'm currently at, and so that makes complete sense. Makes complete sense. Yeah, man, you're at a great spot for sure. So I'm happy for you.
No, I appreciate it. It's yeah, it's funny. My wife, she does like serious SDR work. My wife, she works for Hive MQ. It's
Okay.
it's a fast startup. They're an MQTT broker, which is an alternative to HTTP. So it's basically they power the communication of device to device, as opposed
Okay.
to human being on the World Wide Web and trying to communicate with a device. So yeah, so her SDR work is a lot of research and, you know, like just straight up cold calling. Like,
Yeah.
You know, right? Mine is like way different.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Like traditional pound in the pavement SDR work. Yeah, you should definitely tell her to kind of, check out ChatGTP. I have some really good prompts available where if she's doing, as an example, right, personalization on an account, prospect, whatever, she could, in theory, like, and again, it's different for every org and personas and all that kind of good stuff, right? But you can take like a 10K annual report, plug it in, ask for it to summarize the report. What are some of the top challenges of last year, right? What were some of the symptoms? And then how can her company fix it or have a solution for? And so it also saves you from jumping around, right? I'm on Crunchbase, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm Google searching. You can get real pointed with your questions and save a lot of time so she can spend more time, right, on those pipeline generating activities. Activity goes up, what goes up? In theory, meetings, compensation, etc. Right? So I'm more than happy to kind of share some prompts, or whoever wants to go ahead and ping me. I got a pretty thorough doc built out, and happy to share, because I guess the last thing I'll leave everybody with is, if you're an SDR and you are not leveraging just AI in general, you will get left behind. You need to use this to prop you up and to become a super SDR, so to speak, right? Because as the next generation comes up with their technology skills, they're going to be wizards. And so it's really important for us to not push away or resist change, but really to embrace it. And, I think the results will really speak for themselves.
Thank you for that, Eric, because I can literally, in my notes, they're probably on this file right here that's on my computer. That is next on my list, actually, is to dig into the understanding of AI in the chat, as you said. Like, literally, I have intentions on bringing people on the show who like work in this arena. I'm currently behind the scenes beginning my process now of networking and meeting and looking to bring some people who maybe potentially are a part of the development side of this software and just like pick their brain like apart, like on the show. So that's my
that's awesome, right? I mean, running a podcast, you're getting multiple degrees all at once in theory. So I think that I just think that's so cool. I'm a massive podcast lover, and I just love long form content. And good for you. But no, that's awesome. And I can also say, from a viewer's perspective, I think that's definitely something that I would love to watch. So kudos to you.
Understood. Eric, I really enjoyed this. I really did. I got so much value out of it. Obviously enough to go back and really just kind of watch through and process this. And what you said about leveraging, AI, yeah, I'm probably going to be reaching out to you just to kind of extend that. So because and I'm so not familiar with it. Part of me, I just have to kind of do more reading and wrap my head around it to actually hold a real conversation on it. But I can definitely see from the little I've seen, I didn't realize it blew my head. It's going to literally change things going forward.
It 100% is 100%. So I would definitely start digging in. And I think that if you can get ahead of the curve, right, everyone's going to start using it in the next, let's just say 2 years. So if you can really start leveraging it, let's just say over the next 18 months, I think that will give you so much momentum, whether it be to your next role because you're able to crush quota. But I think getting ahead of the curve is huge.
Awesome. Eric, thank you. Tech Journey.
Appreciate it.
All enjoyed. Drop some comments. Let us know what you thought about the interview. Don't forget, you can connect with Eric on LinkedIn. Link will be in the description. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't done so. And Tech Family, we will see you on the next video.